Hey everybody, it's Rick Troutman, aka The Trout. Thank you so much for joining us on The Trout Show today. I appreciate it very, very much. You know, you probably stopped by to check out this video when you said, a sixth Beatle? How could there be six Beatles? Well, there wasn't six Beatles, obviously. There were four Beatles. And sometimes Pete Best, who was the drummer before Ringo Starr, was considered the fifth Beatle. Well, today my guest, a phenomenally great guitar player, I think could be considered the sixth Beatle because he plays in what I think is the best replicating Beatles band out there, and they're called the Analogues. His name is Jac Bico. Now, the Analogues have been together for 10 years, and I'm telling you, if you haven't checked them out, you should because they sell out everywhere in Europe and the UK whenever they perform. They take the songs from the Beatles albums like the White Album and Sgt. Pepper's and play them note for note on instruments from that time. I just can't say enough about them. But Jac has been their lead guitar player since the beginning, and they've been together for 10 years. And Jac talks about the fact how he got started playing guitar, which was more classical and jazz fusion, and how he got asked to become the lead guitar player for the Analogues. And he talks about how the band got together and how they decide which songs and who's going to do the part in the songs, all that. I thought it was very interesting. So, if you like the Beatles, and hopefully if you watch this video, you probably are, you like the Beatles, hope you enjoyed this episode with the great guitar player, the lead guitar player from the Analogues. Oh, by the way, their website is analogues.net, Jac Bico. Jac is up next on The Trout Show. So I discovered the Analogues, I don't know, 3 years ago, something like that. I was on Instagram, something showed up. Being that I was around when the Beatles came out, and I've seen Beatle tribute bands before, they all get their hair cut the same and they pretend like they're Ringo and all that stuff. And
Yeah,
then you started playing, and I went, oh, wait a minute. This is a whole new ball game.
yeah,
And then so then I watched all the videos on YouTube because obviously you guys are over in Europe all the time.
hmm
And then was it 2.5, a little 2 years ago, I talked to Diederik and Felix, and we talked about the band and all that stuff, which was very interesting. In fact, you were in it. You didn't know you walked behind him when I was talking to him.
Oh,
But I'll get to that in a minute. But I want to talk about you and your guitar. So not your guitar, but your playing. What was the thing? How old were you when you said, "Ooh, I want to start playing guitar"? What kind of said, "I want to do this"?
I want to do this seriously, you mean?
Well, no, I mean, when did you start playing? You just kind of said, I mean, almost everybody I talked to started playing. Over
Well,
here, so I got to play in a local band and all that stuff. But what was the thing that you said, oh, I need to pick up a guitar?
originally I wanted to be a drummer, like my best friend in those days. He was a drummer, and my parents wouldn't have it, so they gave me a ukulele and sent me to lessons.
Oh
So,
my.
so
Ukulele lessons.
I had ukulele lessons from my sixth to my ninth.
Okay.
From my ninth, I got a whole guitar, Spanish guitar,
Yeah.
and continuous lessons till I was 13. Then I went to high school, and then you get other friends, on the public, and started playing electric guitar, and that's where I got really enthusiastic. And I remember, of course, I played the Beatles and the Stones and all those pop
Yeah.
things on the
Yeah.
top 40 and whatnot. But I think it was that until I heard Voodoo Child, Jimi Hendrix on the radio,
Mm-hmm.
and I said, "Wow, that guitar is on fire!" This fuzzing. I didn't know what was happening. Wow, is it also possible on an electric guitar?
Yeah.
And then I decided I wanted to do more with this. I really want to study it. Yeah. So after high school, I wanted to go to the conservatory. That's the name, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's right. Yeah. For over there. Yeah. That's what you guys call it. Sure.
Yeah, but again, my parents wouldn't have it. First learn something you can fall back to. So I
Uh,
I went to a study for a teacher.
Uh,
So I did that, and after 3 years, I went to the conservatory. Yeah. So
so
that's when I made it a serious business. But I was there on the conservatory for with my classical guitar,
I
and I
was going to say,
switched
were you
to.
learning classics? Is that where you're playing more classical music or something like
Yeah,
that?
there was on the conservatory you could only study classical,
Okay.
and I was there first year, and I met this teacher. He was a very young guy. He uh, he taught there for the first year, and he was really a jazz rock fanatic, a fusion, and we got befriended. And he said, I'm teaching here, but it's all classical shit and all, and I would like to have a department here on the conservatory where you can study jazz, or modern music.
Yeah.
I said, that's exactly what I want, if I'm honest,
Yeah.
because that was not happening very much in Holland those days. There was only one school in Holland, in Rotterdam, where they had a jazz department.
So what
So
I'm just curious. I'm just curious. Do you remember what his influences were? Who you liked at that time? The jazz.
oh,
Do you remember?
well, because I got on the conservatory, I played a lot of this jazz rock and fusion, So
Uh,
and so that Lee Ritenour, Robin Ford, John
gotcha.
McLaughlin,
Yeah.
those
Yeah.
those guys, yeah.
Yeah.
But of course, I played all the pop shit also, and I had my bands in my hometown.
Yeah.
I was this guy that went to the conservatory, and I opened my guitar case, and there was this Stratocaster with the vibrato bar,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
and people
Whammy
said, "Oh,
bar.
what is this? What is this?" "Oh, Jack, play that Santana again. You know Santana, eh?" So it was, you know, but I learned quite a lot there. I did 3 years, and then I skipped. Then I dropped out. I had so
Don't
many bands and
well, don't you
ensembles.
think though? Don't you think learning the conservatory, even the classic stuff? I used to listen to Segovia all the time when I was a kid because I always thought, how does one guy, sound like three people playing at the same time? You know, and I've always been disappointed in the younger artists now when I start asking about, do you study the guitar? How did it all get started? And they just, no, somebody 10 years ago or something like that, they'll talk about something like that. But don't you think, though, being there gave you the ability to understand, because jazz is a completely different animal than rock and all that stuff, and I know all those people you talked about. Didn't it help you become a better musician?
Yeah, I think so. I think the classical training really helped. That when I played classical guitar, really good for your technique,
Hmm.
and your understanding of harmonics in classical, and and the jazz department also taught me a lot about harmonics
And the chords in the jazz are
and
completely
chords.
different.
Yes, of
Oh
course.
yeah,
Yeah,
they're just they're
yeah,
they're nothing like, I grew up and I'm a Texas native. I grew up playing blues, rock, and stuff like that. So we were all about three chords, play a blues song, just tell me what key we're in, let's
yeah,
go.
yeah.
And so when I started listening to, one of my favorite two guitarists are not with us anymore, Jimmy and Jeff Beck. And I just admired Jeff. I got to see him once. I got to see Jimmy actually before he died.
All
But
right.
Jeff was really into that fusion. And
Yeah.
he just, nope. The thing about, I always admire people that when they start playing, because of what you do, you have to replicate people that you already know, like the Beatles. But when you start talking about Jeff Beck, you're going like, I can't, nobody can do it. I mean, they can kind of be around it, and it's like, it's not the same. So Jeff
Mhm.
was always doing that fusion stuff. And that's when I got exposed to McLaughlin and people like that he was always working with.
Yeah,
Because, I heard Dan when he was playing with Rod Stewart. Of course, he played with the Yardbirds and all that stuff.
yeah,
But But that chord patterns on the jazz is just so completely different.
True. Uh, I like it very much, and I think Jeff Beck also. Yeah, he kept playing fusion. I think even the last, all those sessions in the Ronnie Scott
Oh yeah.
club. That it's all old school jazz rock. With a rock edge. It's very rock, but I, I think that's what he liked most. Giving a twist on existing chord progressions.
Well, I'm a pentatonic guy. So when you start talking jazz, it kind of gets out of that realm completely. So it's and I think Beck was kind of like that. I think he obviously grew up playing that type music because that's what they grew up with, the Clapton and all those people. And I think it's interesting to me because when you play the Beatles stuff, they were a different, and I'm telling you, you already know, they were a different style because they weren't always the same. I mean, in other words, the lead parts were like, they're not the same. You wouldn't, that's why even, I mean, you guys know now, but it used to be going, who's playing lead to that? Is that George or John or, because they didn't ever replicate anything. It was always to something new.
Yeah, yeah. That was their power, I think, that they all could play guitar
Yep.
and they all could sing. That's why they were so versatile.
And
These days, if you have a band, you have a singer, you have a
yeah,
lead guitarist, rhythm guitarist. But the Beatles, they could swap instruments, very
yeah.
easily, and they all could sing. That's why they were so versatile, and they mastered all those styles.
So when did you go from an amateur to going, okay, now I'm serious. I want to do this for a living? Even though your parents let me tell you, all parents say the same thing, even over here. You need a real job.
Yeah.
I heard the same thing. We all hear the same
Yeah,
thing. Doesn't matter which country you live in. But when did you make that
sure.
step and go, okay, that's it. I'm in.
Well, I think when I got to the conservatory, I had a hunch that I would become a professional, not knowing that it's very hard to get a gig.
Yeah.
But yeah, I dropped out of conservatory because I had on one moment I was in 10 bands and 10 orchestras and projects. So I didn't have the time anymore,
Yeah.
and I could make a little money with it, and then you go onwards. And then I had my first own pop band. That's the end of the 70s, I think,
Hmm.
beginning of the 80s. My first rock band, like a bit of new wave.
Ah, the
So
new
I'm
wave. So yeah, that came in the
so I'm
80s.
back to pop, back to rock again, back
Yeah.
to pop. And it was a quite successful band. We played 3-4 times a week. We had our own bus with
Oh
gear
wow. Yeah.
stuff. Yeah, we're doing quite well. And after that band broke up, I met during the break of that band. I also already met Bart from the Analogues. We lived in the same town, and we got befriended, and we started writing songs together. Found a singer and a girl, and we made pop songs, very West Coast like 60s melodic
Ah,
birds, a lot of harmonies
yeah.
songs. And we had a couple of hits with that band that existed for about 5 years, 6 years. Yeah, made 2 albums
What's the
and a
name of the
couple of
band?
hits. Tambourine.
Tambourine. Never heard of that one.
Yeah.
That's different. Yeah.
Yeah. So by that time, I'd figured out that maybe I could have a living from playing guitar. After that band broke up, I got a lot of work as a session player.
Mm.
I was called by a lot of studios, a
Mm-hmm.
couple of studios. They called me very very frequently to play to play parts for other artists for
Sure.
other albums.
Yep.
Yeah, that was a good period. And I've been doing it ever since, really.
You
And
wouldn't
I've
know what
been,
to do if you didn't do it. That's what you do.
yeah, yeah,
You know, and I think that's the thing about it is a lot of people want to go into business, and of course, you know, things have changed dramatically in the music industry since you and I first started playing. But people start and they still have to do the same thing. They still have to get people to follow them. They have to go out and tour. Can't sell records anymore, but you still have to go out and do your thing and get your merchandise. And so,
yeah.
and I admire the ones that, and I interview a lot of famous people, but also a lot of independent artists that I think they're really good. To see them, especially younger artists, to see that excitement about when you first start out. You know, hey, we're going to eat peanut butter sandwiches all week. Okay, I don't care. Let's go play. You know, and
Absolutely, yeah,
and that, like you said, you had a bus, and it's like, who cares? I'll sleep on the bus. You know, what day? You know, the
yeah,
advantage that you guys have over in Europe is you're not very far from anything. You know, over here, if you want to tour, if you want to get out, well, the state of Texas, you could tour for a long time of all the big cities here, but here you're going like it's 3,000 miles or 15, you know, it's a 3-day trip or something like that. And you're going from one place to the other.
for
And
one gig.
yeah, for one gig. So, and that was the one
Wow.
thing that, you know, that was the one thing weird about Jimi Hendrix was his people would book them and he'd be playing on the East Coast and then he'd be playing in the Midwest and he'd be playing on the West Coast. He was traveling all the time. Not like they do now, you know, you just look at, you go here, just like you guys do over there. You go here, and then you just go here. You don't go the next, you know, you're not traveling very far. But I think that's the advantage you always have had. And talking to a lot of artists in Europe and the UK, I think you have more more festivals than we do. We have them, but they're different over there. And you also are not looking to play to, you know, if you play to 200 or 300 people, that's a pretty good deal. You
If you
know,
was sorry, if you,
if you play for, you know, if you play for 200 or 300 people,
yeah,
that's not a bad way to, you know, and then over here, if you think 200, 300 people, they go, really, that's it? It's like,
yeah,
I mean, it's still a good crowd, but you know, over here, you're like, I'm playing at a 2,000 seater, you know, and that kind of thing. So the thing that's interesting to me is what you just said, that you've known Bart for so many years, that when was, who had, and I've read all about you guys, but I'd rather hear it from the real people. Who was the one that said, you know what? Let's get a band together and start playing Beatles stuff. But I don't want to play it like everybody else. I want to do it exactly note for note. How did that all come together?
that was the plan from Fred, our drummer,
Hmm.
and the producer and the financier.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was his idea, and together with Bart, they developed it
Now,
because
did
there was,
Fred know Bart? They were friends, or did they know each other?
yeah, they were friends. They knew each other from a studio where I also worked a lot. And
Okay.
Fred was a music enthusiast. He had some money, and he started a little label with the studio guy.
Hmm.
And he had this dream of making a really good Beatle band, you know. And there is this band in the States, the Fat Four.
Yeah, I know who they are. Yeah, I
You
know who they
know,
were.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. They still exist.
I don't know. I'll have to look.
Okay.
I don't know. There's been so many different Beatle reincarnations of people. You know, I saw one the other day,
Yeah.
and so I don't know. You know, I have to look
Yeah.
that up.
Because they were kind of an example for us because they also played the later stuff from the Beatles, so from
Hmm.
'66 onwards, and they played whole albums
Hmm.
and very meticulously, also very good. And older guys, no Beatles suits or dressed up, or you know,
Yeah, they were just, yeah, okay.
not singing like John Lennon like this, but just use your own voice, you know, but playing the right notes.
Right.
And that was where the idea came from. But then we took it a step further by also using the instruments from the
Hmm.
period and only using analog equipment. So
Right.
no digital keyboards, no campers or digital amps. all tube amps, all old guitars, all old keyboards. So that was quite a mission to obtain all those instruments that they used from the,
You know,
for
so when you guys started, how many years how long ago was it when the
the
band
now.
started?
We
10
are in our
years.
thing. Yeah, yeah.
And I ask people this, Jack, but I want to know, when did you guys realize that you had something special? How long did it take to go from being a Beatles tribute band, so to speak, playing the notes, to then having people can't hardly wait to come see you?
Yeah,
And when was that? I mean, did it take a year or 2 years or something like that? Or I mean, how quickly did that come about?
I think it took about a year and a half, something like that, because the first album we decided of, no, we did some tryout in a club in
Right.
Amsterdam center, and uh, we did a lot of marketing around it,
Hmm.
and we told the story online. The story is this: we play only old Beatles stuff on original instruments, and we play whole albums, and that's so. And you're invited, and the place was crowded, and but of course it's all in crowd. It's all people,
Yeah.
and all press and all that. But we got very good press, and then slowly a rumor started, and we did the first tour. That was a Magical Mystery Tour. That album we did first in 2015, and I know the first gig there were 250 people. The place was empty, sort of.
Yeah.
But then the word spreads. That's what how it works. And then eventually we got in a TV show where we could play and tell
Hmm.
our story. And it was a very important TV show. It was every night in Holland on between 7 and 8 in the evening.
Prime time, as
Yeah,
they
prime
say.
time. So
Prime
at
time.
the end of that program, our tour was sold out. People started calling. It's sort of like the uh, like the Beatles at Sullivan.
Yeah, it's kind of like that. So how did you pick up all the people that were like, the other performers like Dietrich and Felix and the other gentleman that sings occasionally with you guys? Did they try out? Did they come to you? You guys knew each other? I mean, I know they're all kind of from some of them, most of them are from around there.
Yeah, Diederik and Felix were not in the first edition. The very first edition was Fred, the drummer, and Bart and me, and Jan,
Yeah.
the singer,
Yeah.
who has been out of the band for quite a year because he had problems, and
Hmm.
tonight
Hmm.
he was there in the beginning, and another keyboard player. Yeah, and then yeah, Felix came in the band when Jan got so much trouble with his voice
Mm.
that we needed a replacement very quickly. And we knew Felix, from I worked with Felix in other bands, and yeah,
Yeah, and he was,
everyone.
what was his band? He told me they were pretty well known.
Moog.
Yeah, Moke, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's funny when I talked to them, I said, which one of you decided to be John, which one decided to be Paul? Because it's like, you know,
Yeah.
and I think they just said we didn't really didn't think
No.
about that.
But you always decide who plays a song, who sings a song the best.
Yeah, that's exactly what you do. Who's all right? You try
Yeah.
it. If I can do better than you, whatever. And but
We
who's
have this. It's a sort of thing we always do when we have to do a new song, and we have to decide who's gonna sing it.
yeah.
We have this instrument. We have this track we recorded of the song, and we play it in the studio. And any one of us who wants to sing it, try it. So put on the cans, go for the microphone, and sing it when the others are there, and it's being recorded. Okay, very good. Now next, who wants to also try to sing? Yeah, we'll go in, and then afterwards we listen. Which one is the best? What do you think? What do you think? And well, most all of the time, I'm rejected. I only get I only get the shit songs like "Don't Pass Me By." Don't take me.
Oh yeah, those, yeah. But you know
Oh
what?
man.
Here's the thing. My last band, I started out as the singer in it. And then I finally told them, look, I can't do this. You know, you guys come to me, we did some originals that I wrote, but then we did a lot of cover stuff. And I said, I'm the lead guitar player. I'd rather sit back and play lead guitar. I'll sing occasionally. That's my thing.
Yeah,
So when you're standing over there, and I've watched you many times, is like, okay, I know you do some harmonies occasionally, you bring in some stuff, but you have, the lead guitar player has a heavy part to play because, especially when you're playing what you're doing, and I've said this to many people, everybody knows the song when you start playing it. It's not like they're going to go, oh, I don't recognize that. And they
yeah,
also know every note that's played
yeah,
in it.
yeah. And they are waiting for that notes, you
And
know.
they're waiting for
Yeah,
it. And so, I
yeah.
mean, the thing is, so when you originally started this, did you guys did you guys sit in a room and go, and I've seen Bart and I've seen the stuff on the internet about going in and study, but did you guys sit down or did say, all right, let's listen to the song and what part are we going to take? I mean, obviously you're the lead guitar player. They just kind of go, okay, hey, take this and listen to the lead guitar played in back in the USSR, or While My Guitar Gently Weeps, one of those. How did you do it as a band?
Mm. A lot of discussion. A lot of discussion. What's he playing there, and what guitar is he are they using? You know what he's playing. We can hear it. You know, you have
Yeah,
the tapes. You also have these days you have all the individual tracks
yep.
at your disposal, so you can really hear what the guitar is playing. Very clean, you know. But um, the discussion is always about. I hear other instruments. I hear very very softly. I hear this little bongo thing. No, it's not there. No, you're ridiculous. No, you're not true. Yes, listen very carefully. No, no, it's not true. No. And what guitar is this? I don't know, but I think he played it on the SG. No, it's not possible because this is 69 and he gave in 69 he had given the SG away to Peter Ham from um, the other band he produced, George.
Oh,
Anyway,
yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, and so he didn't have the SG anymore, so it has to be the Les Paul. It just had the Les Paul. All those sort of discussions, it's very funny, and they continue. They
Oh, I'm sure
continue.
you do. Didn't you guys? I assume to a certain degree you could get some of the recording notes. I think some of them are available, aren't they? Where you could go in and studio notes of who played what. I've seen some of it. I don't know how much they make it available, but so because
It's not really documented.
oh, they
It
don't
is
really have it.
documented.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's documented what they did on what day, which song they did and which part of which song.
But they
But
didn't go
it's
into
not.
a lot of the detail about what instrument they were playing.
No.
No, they'd say, okay, this was started at such an okay and okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you had to go through and listen to it. And I guess the thing about it though, and I think this is the thing I admired about you guys the most, is a lot of people that start a band like that now would go out and go, okay, I can buy an effects unit that replicates this. I don't need to buy another guitar. I'll just push my pedal and whatever the sound is I need to do.
Yeah.
But you
Would be a
guys did,
shortcut.
yeah, I mean a shortcut because that's the thing that you guys did. And I tell people about you guys all the time. And I said, you gotta listen to them. It's not like this. And I know I've turned some people on about you guys because they go, oh my God, I had no idea. I said, well, yeah, it's just what they do. This is what they do. And it's almost like it to me when I watched you guys the first one, I was watching the White Album, I think the first one, is the dance that has to be choreographed to go, okay, bring this out real quick. Bring this out. Put this bass in here. Okay, give me the keyboards. Go there. You know, all these
Oh, yeah,
people
yeah,
running around
yeah.
and
The
trying to
crew.
keep the crew and then still drop, you know, what was the song? I know what it was. Because back in the USSR starts, and then you have Dear Prudence. And I'm watching, because I'm going like, all right, how are they going to go here without stopping? Because that was the first thing I thought. It was like, who's doing this? Because I knew it just bled into the next track. And then I had to watch it a couple times. Like, oh, I see. Okay, now I got it over here. He's doing that. Okay, I got that.
Yeah,
But to
yeah.
be able to, and I think part of it, and to me, I'm from that generation. Did you ever think seriously that it'd be this successful when you started? I mean, here you are 10 years old, 10 years later. I looked at your tour list. Several of the dates are already sold out. And it's almost like people can't get enough. It's like you guys could do this for a long time.
Yes, we could. And no, we never thought it would be this successful.
Hmm.
I like the idea because I remember that Bart phoned me up and said, "Hey, Bico, you want to? I have this idea. Do you feel playing in a new Beatle cover band?" And I was like, "Bart, come on, man. There are 300,000 of those bands. No, 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 no. This is something else. We're gonna do it." And then he started the story, and then I thought, "Oh, well, that sounds interesting. Let's give it a go. Like, yeah, let's try it." But we never thought it would be this successful. No, and I know people can't get enough. Yeah, and people are still in the audience and clutching each other, and falling in love again. There's a song from their youth,
Yeah.
and people crying all the time. It's very emotional, and
Yeah.
it rings this bell. It does that, and a part of it is that is on original instruments. Because of course I could play it on a Squier Strat, and with a Kemper, or it would sound not bad, but the old instruments and the old technique and all the know-how and the love we put in for the mixes, also the front of
Yeah.
house, all those correct reverbs and echoes and effects, they all contribute to the experience that people have, because it really sounds like the album, or like the Beatles playing the album, how it would have sounded if the Beatles had played the album live.
Yeah. And I think the thing about it too, and you're right, I think that's why tribute bands are still, no, not tribute, but bands that are still playing like the Eagles and the Stones and people like that are still on tour. Of course, the Eagles, there's not a lot, it's changed a lot of the members.
Yeah,
That's what people still go and pay ridiculous amounts of money to hear them
yeah,
because it reminds, it's nostalgic for them. What was I doing?
yes,
Yeah, I remember that song, and then if it's somebody that sang it and can still sing it close because they've gotten older, they can't hit the high notes like they used to. And
yeah,
I remember Elton John saying a few years ago, he says, no way. That's why everything, and of course you and I know when we listen to it, go, okay, that's modulated down a key. It's like, they don't know in a crowd, but we know because it's like, no freaking way you're going to hit that note that anymore.
yeah,
And,
yeah,
and the thing about it, so you started out and you did this, and I remember when I talked to the other guys, I said, why haven't you, and I know the answer, but as successful as you are in Europe, and I know you've been to the UK a few times, why haven't you come to America? Now, I can answer that question to a certain degree. It takes a lot of money to come to America. You got to go through a lot of hoops. You got to have all sorts of things you got to get. Visas, you got to do a lot of stuff. But, and I know you don't do it for the money. The money's great now for you guys selling out and all that stuff. But my goodness, if you came over here and did 10 dates, you could pick the place you wanted to and sell
yeah,
out. But you got
yeah.
12 people that come on stage,
Hmm.
and you're used to the ones that play violin and all that stuff. You know, and I'm sure you've all got together with Fred and everybody gone, Man, the States. We need to go to the States.
Yeah, of course, and certainly Fred, because he's half American. His wife is American,
Oh, okay. Well, I didn't know that.
and he
Yeah.
has an apartment there, an apartment house there. So
Yeah.
he's in America a lot. It's
Yeah.
his second home country, and he certainly wants to play America, or at least the the Beacon in New York.
Yeah. I figured that's probably where he was. He lives in New York or someplace over there. Yeah.
Yeah, and invite all his business friends. But yeah, we want also, we are begging or for years.
Yeah.
Why don't we go to Las Vegas? If if we play half a year in Las Vegas,
Yeah.
we don't have to work the rest of our lives.
Oh, no, you wouldn't.
Yeah,
I and,
but
and I understand though because I've talked to other musicians that even their solo acts, small acts, it's not easy sometimes. Because the fact that the visas can be difficult sometimes. But it's just I'm a logistics guy, and I from the standpoint I admire people that put big things together like the band you're in, because I know the logistics have to be well now you got it down to science. But
mm,
I was interviewing the producer of the Experience Hendrix tour, which is starting up, and they get all the famous guitarists to come in. These are people that are Grammy number winners by themselves, and they put them all on this tour. And I just kind of went, "How'd you get all these guys to agree to do this?" I mean, and he said, "Well, because they like playing Jimi Hendrix, you know."
yeah.
But the
In
other
the
thing
end,
too, no, go ahead.
in the end, it's the love for the music, of course.
Well, haven't you changed? I mean, have you seen over the course of several years that the crowd, even though it's an older crowd, I'm sure a lot of younger people come in now.
Yeah, more and more younger people, especially abroad, especially in Germany and France.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's getting younger and younger. Like couples from in their 40s with their children of 8 to 10 years.
Yeah.
Come on, you have to see the Beatles. Part of your education.
Well, and it's funny when you talk to younger people sometimes they'll tell you, I say, I always listen, what do you listen? What's on your playlist? Oh, I got, let's see, the Beatles, and and they start naming them off, and I'm going like, what? Oh, I don't listen to new stuff. It might be around the early 70s I listen to or something like that. And it's not like you'd expect. And
Yeah,
it's like you'd figured, Taylor Swift and, whatever the current thing is hot. But the
yeah,
other thing too, so when you guys, you made a comment a while ago, which is that's another thing, because all your recordings, live recordings, are great sounding, but that point you made earlier was in front of the house, it has to sound like that. It's easy to manipulate that after the fact, but you can't do that when you're there.
yeah,
So your sound reinforcement people must try. I mean, you must have had the same people for quite some time, or at
yeah,
least
yeah, yeah, yeah.
you'd have
All
to.
the time. We have a very good crew. Yeah, a very good crew, and I hear all the time from the audience that the sound is very good. I've only heard once or twice from people that it's very loud, it's very loud, but there was only once or twice. Most of the time, it's very good. It's very good.
Very
Not too
loud.
loud. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
It's
I
very
don't
important.
I don't think the Beatles could play. Well, of course they couldn't play loud at all because they had their. That's one of the reasons they had to quit because they couldn't hear themselves.
Yeah, couldn't play loud enough. Yeah,
And it's interesting too when you think about all the electronic equipment we have nowadays. And I sitting behind me is my Marshall amp. I always everything I have is tubes. I have a practice amp I use, but it's just something I use to. But everything else is tubes. So you guys had to go out and find all these guitars. Now, of course, I was told the only one that you didn't go after was the one that was the Les Paul that was about $250,000 if you'd bought the 1950 or whatever it was. You just got to reissue.
yeah.
Um, and let's talk about your equipment. How many guitars do you play? So let's talk about. I'm familiar with the White Album. So How many different guitars do you switch to on that particular album?
I don't know, but I know on my side of stage there are roughly 15 guitars. I
Well,
think. Yeah.
and as a player, each one of them plays a little different. You know
Yeah,
that.
and sometimes you have to have a drop D or you know or because the Beatles also spinned tracks.
Oh, so what did you use the drop D on? I didn't know they did that, or is it just the way they recorded it?
Um, for instance, Julia,
Hmm.
I think it's drop D.
I always wonder why that sounded different. That makes sense.
Well, a couple of those Travis picking acoustic songs. I don't remember. I don't know by
Yeah.
heart. Sorry, and so instead of tuning the existing guitar down, no, we can do that. Then we
Don't have
have
time.
another guitar tuned down or tuned up. Yeah.
Do
So
you
there's a
do
lot of guitar.
you yeah, so do you go direct on the acoustics on that? I mean, I think don't you use some pedals or is it my imagination? It's just you change guitars and do futzing around with the guitar.
Sorry, what's the
So
question?
so on your let's talk about your acoustics. Do you go direct to the PA?
Yeah,
Okay. But then when
yeah.
you're playing the Epiphones and there's a little distortion or something like that, is that done by any effects or is that something you have to do with they manipulate the amp or you do something like change the pickup relationship?
No, it's always pedals. Yeah, I have two amps on stage. It's a Vox AC50 and a Fender Twin, non-master volume, so from '69, I think.
Hmm. Hmm.
They are great, and they're both quite
Yeah.
cleanish.
Yeah.
And then because I have to have a clean sound, for a lot of songs. And if I need distortions or overdrive, it's all done with pedals.
Yeah.
So I have this rack full of pedals and fuzzes and I don't know what not. And that is all controlled with a MIDI board at my feet.
Oh,
So
really? Okay.
that's where the digital world enters. So I can make presets of the intro,
That's why
of
I
the
figured you did.
of
Yeah.
the verse, of the chorus, of the solo, and then with one kick of the switch, I can make a completely different sound because the routing goes via MIDI to all different pedals effects.
My question is, how did they just turn the amp up to get some pressure, I mean to get a little distortion on it?
Yeah, they turned the amp up, and they also had this uh, treble booster.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and they had also fuzz.
Oh yeah, Fuzz came out in the 60s.
Yeah,
Yeah.
color sound, or I don't know. Yeah.
Now,
Uh,
now do you guys use when you're doing Strawberry Fields, do you use a Mellotron or do you have it, is that a different, you do? Wow. I think I've
yeah,
never
we
seen
have.
reading about trying to find one of those things.
Well, good luck.
No, I mean, I
Yes, we
remember reading about you guys, trying to find it and find one that still works.
yeah, yeah, that's quite a machine. We have
It's,
one, and we have the old one from Roxy Music.
oh, Roxy Music. Wow. I,
It's a number 10, I think, because there are I think roughly 50 or so worldwide.
no, that's it.
Paul has number 9 himself, and we have number 10. So, and it has to be in revision. Last year it was away for a month back to England. There are a
Isn't that where
couple
they
of
made them? They made them in England, didn't they? Where they,
they made them in England, and
yeah.
the factory doesn't exist anymore. But there are a couple of guys, and they work in a shed, and they, they restore old old. Yeah, that's what they do. So then it has to go there, and it takes them a month to repair it and to yeah.
Well, I got into that with, of course, I listen to Strawberry Fields. I always thought, what kind of weird stuff they get going on here? But it was the Moody Blues that really used it a lot,
Yeah,
when they were
true.
their first stuff. And then when
Yeah,
I saw how they worked, I went, well, this is the craziest thing I've ever seen. Tape
yeah.
loops, and and I was looking at your website before I came on here. There's a lap steel on Strawberry Fields. I saw, well, you guys had a lap steel up there. I saw some of the equipments, and it said it was used in Strawberry Fields. And I'm thinking, I don't know where they had a lap steel, but who knows what they were doing with that stuff. I think they threw stuff in to just see what it would work.
What do you mean? Strawberry
Well,
fields?
yeah, they said, well, there's on something on your website where you have a list of some of the guitars and instruments that you use, the keyboards and all that stuff. But there was a lap steel in there, a small one.
Seal?
Steel, like steel
Steel.
guitar. Yeah. And it said used in Strawberry Fields. And I'm thinking, okay, where is that? Where does that come into play? And I thought
Yeah.
maybe it comes in where he goes, "Let me take you down." Well, you might.
Yeah,
I
oh,
don't.
yeah, that's the
Yeah,
sound.
that's
Yeah,
where they use it. Okay.
that's lap steel. That's right.
Yeah.
That's a Hufner of a Hufner lap steel. No, it's not Hufner. Framus
No,
or something. A
I think it's
German.
Framus. I think it's Framus. I
Yeah,
don't remember.
yeah. We have it. We found it.
So let me ask you this question: Is it? And I know you've been doing it 10 years. This may sound like a silly question. Is it still as much fun as it always has been?
Yeah, it is. It is still good fun. Yeah, because the music is still magic. When you play it, it still gives you goosebumps every now
Yeah.
and then. And so the music is still great. The guys we work around us is great. We've got a
Yeah.
great crew. The band we are all sort of friends. So the money is good. So yeah,